All right, what's going on, Exiles? It's your boy Belton, back here for a deep dive. Today we are going to be discussing the upcoming race, 1 week race that will be starting next Friday. A mixture of two league combinations there, Lake of Kalandra and the Sentinel League. Both of them quite interesting, got a lot of depth. And so today we're going to be covering league mechanics and crafting guides, sort of in case you missed it, or a catch-up for anyone that either didn't heavily participate in those leagues, maybe perhaps forgot about the mechanics or what can be crafted with them, or just someone who needs brushing up, because both of them are rather nuanced and they do have some exciting possibilities in conjuncture, and they are both leagues that I played to the nth degree. So looking forward to it, and put together a nice little slideshow here so I could stay on topic. And for those of you who aren't participating in the race next week, well, then I'm just going to have to go ahead and say you're a little racist. So might want to fix that. All right, let's get my big old mug out of the way here before we start. So before we go into this guide any further, it's important we establish some baseline information, since there are some assumptions or some basal sort of preface points that we need to cover before I follow up with essentially my thesis here. So the race starts next Friday. That'll be November 10th, and it ends 1 week immediately thereafter on November 17th. The league or the race is non-voided, which means you're going to keep your gear at the end, and it'll be preserved at the end of the race. The merging league, so when the league is done, the race is done rather, it will be going to standard and not to Ancestor League. That's an important thing to note. And the reintroduction of Lake of Kalandra. Sorry, I hit my mic there. The reintroduction of Lake of Kalandra mechanics is the greatest boon here. Don't get confused by that, all right? Recombinators are and have been available on standard since the end of Sentinel League. And since Lake of Kalandra is the time-sensitive mechanic, we want to be focusing on optimizing its use in both in of itself and in conjunction with Sentinel. So from this point onward, all the commentary that I have will be through the lens of gear optimization, collectability, and posterity. None of this, of what I'm saying, has anything to do with the race in of itself. But what novel, so what new or crafting opportunities will arise, and what potential best-in-slot items or previously unobtainable crafts are now going to be possible. While there are many unique crafting possibilities afforded by Recombinators, none of these are time-sensitive in of themselves, as the League merges to Standard, not to Ancestor, where they are otherwise available on a permanent basis. As a result of this, we will exclusively, in this video and for myself in the League, be focusing on items that, for the first time ever, will take advantage of both Sentinel and Lake of Kalandra. And so that means we're going to be focusing on rings and on amulets. So, look at this. I got a transition slide. The kid's growing up. So we're going to talk about Lake of Kalandra now. So the basic overview for it. You progressively find tiles that you can assemble in a variety of different ways to increase the length, which subsequently increases the tier of the lake, as well as choosing different mechanics that correspond with these tiles. The mechanic itself is rather convoluted, and as such, it's very difficult to self-source exact layouts, in particular because of the rarity of the one and the only tile that we are concerned about, and that is the reflecting mist. Now, there is some nuance as to how to best set up the appropriate lakes in order to maximize your chance of success. However, prior to delving further into that, I should point out that we are almost always going to have to purchase the lakes that we want or need in order to sustain the amount of crafting that I plan on doing, and if you're trying to do this level of high-end crafting, that you will likely need to do as well. They are not sustainable or possible to target farm, in particular due to the very short duration of the race. Right, we've only got 7 days. So the basic concept of the mechanic is that you place either a ring or an amulet into the mist, which has its own UI, and then you press the button. After this, the mist will reflect all of the mods on your item, increasing or decreasing their value based on the tier of the tile within the lake that your reflecting mist is on. This interaction can greatly strengthen certain mods, but it can also greatly damage them too. In a typical reflection, 50% of the mods will be positively impacted and 50% will be negatively impacted. They have an equal but opposite effect. So for example, if you were in a tier 8 lake, which is a golden number that you want to remember for sure, tier 8 lakes, you would be applying a times 2.0 multiplier to the mods of your item. So just for demonstrability's sake, we're just going to use 2 mods here, but obviously typically you would have more mods than that on an item. So let's say you had 70 life, which was chosen to go up, and 45 lightning res, which was chosen to go down. The reflection would give you the option to either choose a ring or amulet that had a plus 140 life with minus 90 lightning res, or minus 140 life with plus 90 lightning res. So they have both gone up in the same value, so times 2.0, but equal and opposite. That pattern would follow throughout for the rest of the mods. Now, it is possible that the reflection can give greater than 50% positive impact to the reflected item. So sometimes, assuming you have a 6 modded item, sometimes 4 mods will go up and 2 will go down. Sometimes 5 will go up and 1 will go down. And it's nearly non-existent case, I would say 1 in 100, but there are cases where it happens where all of them will go up. Now, since the reflecting an item makes it mirrored, so it gives it the mirrored tag, means it cannot be further augmented in any way. The exception to that being, the exception to that being anointments. The strategic approach is to assume that there's going to be a 50-50 split, right? So when you're crafting to either for profit or when you're crafting your gear, even though it's nice to be optimistic and to hope to get a 4-2 split or 5-1 split or God forbid a 6-0 split, if you want to approach it strategically, in particular, if this is not something that you have either the time, currency, or wherewithal to do on a repetitive basis, you certainly want to approach it strategically. So you want to assume that there's going to be a 50-50 split, and you want to assign or craft your mods accordingly. If you choose an item that only has 5 total modifiers, 3 will go up and 2 will go down. This is one way, in most cases, because it's possible that it would be 4 and 1 or 5 and 0. This is one way to reduce that burden, however, right? So instead of having 3 go up and 3 go down, you can just have 3 go up and 2 go down. There are also several modifiers that have no negative inverse and can therefore eat, quote unquote, eat a bad modifier. Aspects are a prime example of this. So aspect of the cat, aspect of the spider, etc. Another way to do so would be to purposefully put modifiers whose negative result benefits your character. A common use for this in League of Kalandra League in of itself was to use Doriani's chest and to use lightning resistance and to get the lightning resistance to eat the negative. So you get the negative lightning res, which ends up benefiting your character. Now, sorry guys. It's important to remember that PoE does not round up or recognize partial numbers or decimals. When choosing your lake, it is very, very important that you calculate breakpoints for certain mods. For example, if you have a +1 all skills with +1 fire skills, so a +2 fire amulet, with the ambition of reflecting it into a +4 amulet, you would need to have at least a times 2.0 multiplier. This would be achieved from a tier 8 or above. For each ascending or descending tier, there is a 0.05 increase or decrease. So, for example, if tier 8 is 2.0, tier 7 is times 1.95, and tier 9 would be times 2.05, etc. I actually have the chart listed here in a second, so if you want to take a screenshot of that, get ready to do so. The maximum multiplier on tier 16 is times 2.4. So yes, with respect to the decimals here too, very important to note that if you have, let's say you've got, you got the +1 amulet and you've got a tier 7 map and it's times 1.95, even though you're at 1.95 and it's much closer to 2 than it is to 1, it will not round up. That will go down, it will stay at a +1 to all skills. You need to make sure that you are full integers when you're, doing these calculations. So due to the rarity of the tile, it is important to be thoughtful, strategic, and purposeful with your choice of targeting your target item, so what ring or amulet you put in. When making this consideration, it is important to know and or remember what types of items are not able to be reflected, so you do not overcommit resources to something that is null and void. So there are certain items that are precluded from this, and I'll list those off now. So obviously, any base that is not either a ring or an amulet, that should be a pretty obvious one. Unset rings, that's maybe a less obvious one. Unset rings will not, they cannot be reflected. Influenced items cannot be reflected. Synthesized items cannot be reflected. Corrupted items cannot. Mirrored items cannot. And unique items, obviously, cannot. However, fractured items will work. So they're pretty much the only one of that crafting bunch there that do. And here are the multipliers I was just mentioning. So you can see tier 16 will give you a 2.4, and then it's minus 0.005 per level from there, with the baseline being times 1.5. So you can take a screenshot of that if you'd like. Now, so the specifics with respect to mod optimization, crafting for failure, what tier lake to use, etc. These things can take some practice and some thoughtful planning. But once grasped, it's actually a pretty fun mechanic. Lake of Kalandra was wildly unpopular, however, so unsurprisingly, it was not added to the core game. And as a result, I cannot demonstrate live for you guys how this works. However, I did play Lake of Kalandra up until the last day. In fact, one of the big chase items in Lake of Kalandra League was a +4 amulet. If you were to go look on standard right now, there's about 260 +4 amulets of all, so +2 to all skills, and then +2 of every different gem type. There are 260 of them listed on standard, online or offline. About 70 of those are mine. So around 25% of all +4 amulets that exist were ones that I made. So we definitely we did quite a few of them in that league for sure. But as a result of that, in the process of doing that, this was really before I was streaming kind of full time and taking it more seriously. I made a quick little video where I speed crafted a amulet. So I bought an amulet that just had +1 to all skills, and I crafted it into a +2 amulet. And then I crafted it from the +2 amulet into a +4 amulet. Not only that, but I correctly said what every single mod would be on the amulet when it was done. And the whole process took 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So, since I can't actually demonstrate these for you live, what we're going to do here, I'm just going to open up this little video for you just to show you what the Lake of Kalandra layout looks like. If you're interested in this video, I will link this below in the description, as well as anything else that I mentioned in passing throughout the course of this video. I'll put those links below.
All right, what's up, everyone?
Sorry, I gotta.
We've been doing quite a bit.
All right, so at the beginning here, you can see we've got the +1 to all skills, and we're predicting +1, +2, cold damage, aspect, AoE, ailment, or attacking cast. And then I believe I start crafting at...
Okay.
And if you see there, we have got... We ended up with +1 to cold, +1 to all skills, cold damage, attack, and cast. And bada boom, bada bing, area damage. Now it looks like we're going to go put on the aspect. As I mentioned, aspect is a good one to get on there because it can eat the mod, right? And so this is just the crafting the +2 amulet here. So just going to speed forward a little bit. You can see the timer in the top right corner there. All right, so here we go with the lake. So here you can see here's what the mirrored tablets will look like. And right there we can see on the bottom, it's called Reflection of Kalandra and difficulty 8. As I mentioned, the golden number that we're looking for is that tier 8, as it gives us a times 2.0. Since what we're trying to what we're trying to reflect here is the +2 amulet. Obviously, we want to get that to +4. So for each +1, we need to have at least tier 8 modifier. And as I said earlier on, or alluded to, that's really going to be your golden number there. Okay. As a side note, I'm actually playing a Hateforge Volground Slam Berserker. This is the first melee character I ever played, as well as first time using Hateforge, which is a pretty fun experience actually. I actually didn't mind Lake of Kalandra at all as a league. The problem I think that most people had with it was the difficulty in self-farming. Getting these tiles together was a pain in the ass. There's actually quite a few cool mechanics there. And the reflecting tiles are really cool. It's just that most people would be playing for a month and a half and they would maybe get one of them, right? And it often will take several to get it done. So I think people just got a little disillusioned from it. All right. So anyways, here we are. We're approaching the final tile of the map. So we've got our +2 amulet with AoE cold damage. And so here we go. So there we go. That's the reflecting mist right now. So you can see here, this is the UI. So we've got that little slot there where we will put in either our amulet or ring. We press reflect. And now you can see it gives you 2 options to choose from. So you can either take the one from the right or the left. You don't get to take both of them. You have to pick one.
Booyah, bitch. 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
And there we go. Now, if you take a look here, you'll see that we got increased attack and cast speed, 16%. So that doubled. +2 to cold skills. All skills, sorry. +2 to level of all skills. So that doubled. And +2 to level of all cold skills. So that doubled. So we so we started our timer at what? 3 minutes. So in 2 minutes and 40 seconds, we turned a +1 into a +4. Now we can see here as well that we got reduced area of effect and reduced area damage, as well as reduced cold. So both of those went negative. As I mentioned, it's most often a 50-50 split. And then we can see here, grants level 20 aspect of the cat. As I also mentioned, aspect of the cat does not have a negative inverse to it. So in this case here, we had 3 good mods all go positive. We had 2 go negative, and then the third negative had no impact because it was the aspect of the cat. But that is what it looks like. So you'll see here when I remove the amulet there, it does not give you the option. It just becomes a hollow lookout. So it's important when you do these to make sure you look at both amulets. I've actually made that mistake once while I was doing it, where I I grabbed an amulet too quickly and then realized I had a very good +4 that I'd accidentally pulled out a -4. And of course 30 seconds after I realized I had left a +4 in there, which I had no remedy for. So do take your time when you're looking. So yeah, that's that video there. Again, I will link that below if you want to watch that over again. So for the Lake of Kalandra conclusion, now that we understand the basic mechanics of how crafting is done within the Lake of Kalandra, we can explore the accompanying league and its corresponding crafting mechanic. So the league is Sentinel, and the crafting mechanic, everybody's favorite, recombinators, baby. So again, our little transition slide and Sentinel League explained. So Sentinel League is often cited as one of PoE's best leagues ever, and with good reason, and I personally have it in my top 3. My top 3 are Sentinel, Legacy, and Dark Shrines. But it blended a fun, customizable, universal, and rewarding league mechanic. And what I mean by universal is that you could use it everywhere. Often the league mechanics, you have to enter a separate zone or go into, for example, Toda. You've got to go to the Halls of the Dead or whatever, right? Or Temple, you got to go into Temple, right? With this league mechanic, with the actual Sentinels themselves, you could just be mapping and have it going off, blah, blah, blah. So it was not intrusive, and it felt like, you could do it to augment your gameplay without having to, really commit a full day to it kind of thing. So yeah, it blended fun customization, universal and rewarding league mechanic with an entirely new system of crafting that, by virtue of how that system worked, it gave potential value to every item in the game. Even lowly magic items and rare items that were more accustomed to being filtered out of sight than being picked up. And I think that was one of the best things that it did, is because of recombinators being able to move mods around. People started looking at the mods again. People started picking up rares, identifying rares, looking at amulets to see if a +1 was on there. Just looking for rare mods. Other than that, was a cool time. So on top of that, the new system of crafting, recombinating, which is initiated by using one of the 3 different crafting currencies, which are called recombinators. Those 3 types are armor recombinators, jewelry recombinators, or weapon recombinators. Actually, they're called weaponry recombinators. Was mechanically nuanced. It rewarded those who understood it best, and it created novel modifiers and modifier combinations. So it had its own Sentinel mods as well. It allowed you to mix and match mods that were otherwise previously never possible to be combined. While there are a near infinite amount of things that one could discuss when it comes to the recombinator potential, literally I could probably talk for 40 hours straight about all the cool things you could do with them. We're going to be focusing on the most pertinent crafts within the confines of this 1-week race. And accordingly, we will not be considering, and I'm not going to mention, Sentinels, because that's the actual league mechanic itself. you equip them in a little tree, blah blah blah. But rather, we're going to focus on how to best use Sentinel recombinating with the Lake of Kalandra, as discussed earlier. So, the purpose of the scope, furthermore, as the purpose or scope of this video is to, in case you missed it, or provide a refresher for the crafting components of both leagues, we're not going to be focusing on Sentinels themselves. Although, if that's desired, or if there's anything I left out or brushed over here that you guys want further depth on, or clarification, feel free to bring that up, and I'd be happy to make some more videos. So since Lake of Kalandra or Reflecting Mists only work on rigs and amulets, we are going to be demonstrating and discussing the functionality of recombinators solely through this lens. However, it should be noted that recombinators can be used on all base types, except for jewels. So recombinators are the crafting currency from Sentinel League. Sorry, the title being what are recombinators? There are 3 different types, and they all have the exact same functionality. And they only differ based on the type of item that they can be used on. So weapon recombinators can be used on weapons and quivers, jewelry recombinators can be used on belts, amulets, rings, and armor recombinators can be used on everything else: helmets, bodies, boots, gloves, and shields. But they cannot be used on jewels. The basic concept of a recombinator, henceforth I'm just going to call them recombs because that's what a lot of people will shorthand them to, is that you take 2 items of the same category. So they don't have to be the exact same base, but the same category. So a one-handed sword or like a bow. You don't need, let's say you don't need to have 2 spine bows. You could use a harbinger bow and a spine bow, but they both have to be bows. So, one-handed swords, amulets, 2-handed axes, etc. And you place them into the recombinator, which has its own crafting UI. Upon clicking recombinate, the 2 items will blend and create a new item that will take the modifiers from each one of those feeder items and create a new item with those modifiers, destroying the 2 feeding items in the process. The recom process can additionally change the tiers up or down of the mods, remove modifiers, add random modifiers, or mutate modifiers. The process will also often change the item level of what emerges as it follows a specific formula. And for those of you who want to know the specifics, that is if A plus B divided by 2 plus 2. So if you had item level 70 ring with an item level 80 ring, you recombinated them. So 70 plus 80 is 150. So you divide that by 2, 75, and then you add 2 to that, 77. So instead of a 70 or a 80, you now have a 77 outcome. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it does actually allow you to raise the item level of certain things if you want to. For example, Blizzard crowns right now are you can only get them to item level 83 since they come from Ritual. However, with recombinators, you can elevate them to a point that they can get access to every single mod. For example, T1 suppression. So mutated modifiers, as I mentioned earlier, are the Sentinel-only mods that can only be created through the process of recombination. These are also typically very powerful compared to regular mods. Each item type has its own corresponding Sentinel mod, and these items cannot be moved from one. These mods cannot be moved from one base to another, and this is purely by virtue of the fact that recombinating is locked to items of the same type. So you can't recombinate an amulet to a sword kind of thing. Only an amulet to an amulet. And since we're going to be focusing on amulets and rings, the 2 mutated Sentinel mods that we'll be discussing, there's actually 4 of them. On amulets, the Sentinel mod or the mutated mod is 15 to 20% increased aura effect, which is a suffix. And on rings, as I'm sure most of you probably know, the mutated mod or the Sentinel mod is either a max frenzy charge, max power charge, or a max endurance charge. It can be any one of those 3, and they are not mutually exclusive, so they can stack. You can have all 3 of them on the same item. On top of the mutated mods, another great strength of recombinators is that they allow for the transfer of otherwise mutually exclusive mods. So let's say you had a drop-only suffix, so like a delve curse on hit on a ring, let's say, and you wanted to get, crit multi suffix from an essence, right? Normally you wouldn't be able to have those 2 things together unless it was fractured. With recombinators, you can do that. And there's some really cool combinations you can do. For example, you can get the Temple minus 8 mana, and you can get the Elrayon minus mana. You can put both of those bad boys together. So you get minus 8 with the minus 8 with minus 10. And then you can put the life catalyst on that, and then you can go off and take that to lake and get, so wait, what would that be? Minus 8, minus 10, you'd be 12, 9, 21. And then you could take that to lake, and if they both hit, you'd have times 2.4 be 48. 50. You'd have minus 50 mana to non-channeling skills. Pretty crazy. But yeah, in addition to all the novel combinations that they allow, recombinators can also be used to simply expedite the process of obtaining. Expedite the process of obtaining normally sought after but difficult to roll mods. So, for example, crafting a Fizzbow, getting Dictators and Merciless together can be a very arduous process and a very expensive process. Whereas with recombinators, you can just get Merciless on one bow and Dictators on another bow, recombinate them together relatively easily, and bada boom, bada bing, you saved yourself about 10 hours and 5 mirrors. The skill or challenge of using recombinators comes from understanding mutual exclusivities that exist between different item categorizations and how to best use these to improve your odds of successfully recombinating an item. The recombinated item follows a set of rules in 3 separate stages with respect to modifiers, how those modifiers are chosen. These 3 stages always take place in the same order, and they are, number 1, it will choose the base item. Number 2, it will choose the prefixes. And number 3, it will choose the suffixes. For step 1, it is always a 50-50. There's nothing you can do to adjust that at all. If you put in, let's say, an Onyx amulet and an Agate amulet, it will be a 50% chance to pick the Onyx, 50% chance to pick the Agate. If you put in a Synth ring and an Influence ring, it'll be 50% for the Synth. So no matter what, when you're doing that, the base is always going to be a 50-50 at the very least. So each one of these stages is calculated independently of the next. So the implicit or the base is done, then the prefixes are done, and then the suffixes are done. The prefixes and the suffixes follow the same rule set, but they are calculated completely separately. For both the prefixes and suffixes, there are a set of rules, probabilities, mutual exclusivities, and mod blocking strategies that can help dictate not only the likelihood for desired mods to be retained, but also the total amount of either prefixes or suffixes that are chosen. A recombinated item, for example, if you put in 2 items that each had 3 prefixes, so between the 2 of them you had 6 total prefixes, that would have a far greater chance or far greater likelihood of having the recombinated item at the end having 3 total prefixes than if you were to do the same thing with put in 2 feeder items that both only had 2 prefixes each. So for a total of 4 prefixes. So there's certain things like that. Furthermore, there exists a series of mutual exclusivities that can be used to your advantage to forcibly remove unwanted mods, increasing the likelihood for desired mods to be retained. Fracture, influence, and synthesis items, for example, cannot coexist. This means if you recombinate a synthesis item with either a fracture or influenced item, and the synthesis base is chosen in step 1, any influenced or fractured mods will be 100% guaranteed to be removed from the final state item. Recombinated items will only ever remove 2 modifiers in either stage 2 or 3, so from the prefix phase or the suffix phase. If you have 6 total mods, it'll randomize the last one to get rid of, but if you have, let's say, 5 total mods on there, and you have 3 that you want to keep, and 2 of them are in this situation I just gave there. So you've got a synth ring that was chosen. You've got 5 total prefixes. Let's say it's 3 charges, 1 of each charge. And then the other 2 remaining prefixes are both, let's say, Crusader mods. Since Synthesis and Crusader cannot coexist, and since it can only remove forcibly 2 of them, that means that it would remove both of the Crusader mods guaranteed, and it would forcibly put all of the charges on that ring as long as it decided to pick the 3 prefixes. As I mentioned, the total amount of prefixes or total amount of suffixes you have on an item will dictate the likelihood for it to have the number of mods. So if you only have 2 prefixes, you're more likely to have either 1 or 2 prefixes. Obviously, you're never going to have 3 in that situation. Whereas if you have 4 total prefixes, there's a small chance to have 3 prefixes in the recombination. If you have 5 total prefixes, I think it's a 50-50. And if you have 6 total prefixes, it's a 70%. Kind of works like that. So recombinated items will only remove 2 modifiers on stage 2 or 3, as I just mentioned, meaning you can essentially force mods onto other ones if you know how to set these up properly with mutual exclusivities. This deeper level of recombinating nuance is quite a lengthy discussion, however, and one which will require some level of first-hand experience to really kind of fully understand. Talking about it in the abstract like this is definitely going to be confusing some people, I suspect. But really, you do have the opportunity to try this on standard before the league. If you are unfamiliar with that process, recombinators are actually very cheap on standard right now. I do recommend just getting your hands dirty and just getting a feel for them ahead of time. For the sake of this video's duration, however, I'm going to try not go down that rabbit hole. But for those seeking a deep dive into it, you can check out the complete guide to recombinators written by Iron, which was posted to Reddit during Sentinel League, and one which I have linked here. The slideshow as well will be down. The link to the slideshow that I'm presenting now will be down in the description, so you guys can just click all of these hyperlinks there. So another thing that you can have with the recombinators is the recombinator cheat sheet. So as I mentioned, you can have total amounts of mods. So you can see here, all you do for this one is make a copy like that, make a copy for yourself, and then you can just enter the data manually. For myself, obviously, I've done this enough times that I know the numbers naturally. But if you're new to this and having trouble following it, it's a good thing to kind of follow along with. As well, there is another complete guide to recombinators part 2 that goes into some further deeper dive stuff as well. So I would check out both those resources if you're interested. So what are my thoughts or feelings about Sentinel? In the first week of Sentinel League, I used 20,000 recombinators to gather data on the proc rate of mutation mods. Why did I do this? Because I found out that the mutation mods could be power, frenzy, and endurance charges, and I am a perennial discharge enjoyer. This data was actually able to help inform some of the literature that developed around Sentinel League, and it was actually my first foray into the PoE public since returning from the military where I was serving for 3 years prior. The presence of max charges was insensitive enough. However, combined with the communal feedback my guides and crafts were receiving, I would largely personally credit Sentinel League for reigniting the passion I have for this game and for the community. I had 13 posts of mine with different crafts and strategies go to the #1 post on the PoE subreddit just in Sentinel League. That was prior to the moderators of that subreddit deciding to permanently ban me. But one of my great joys, before I was barred from doing so, was posting cool crafts that had never been done before. And then, you have the community kind of chime in and people would talk about different, like, oh, that's so cool. What if you do it this way, and that was a really cool aspect of Sentinel League was, so many new opportunities arose, and recombinators are really something that once you understand them well, you can scale it. It's not like just pulling a lever on a slot machine. It's like if you understand the functionality of them, you will absolutely outperform somebody who does not. And so it feels like the time you invest into it scales well, like, you have an adequate reward for time input kind of thing. That matrix is in balance. But yeah, that was a great part of it. This was also the league, by the way, that I created for the first time in the game's history, the 100% chance to not consume discharges build. 100% chance to not consume charges discharge build. And if you're interested in seeing that, I have a forum post on it from Sentinel League. I'll link that below as well. And for those of you who are familiar with the PoE content creators, Kobe Kobe Black Mamba, he actually made a YouTube video about my build just because people thought I was so cool at the time. I'll link that as well. So yeah, a demonstration now of how recombinators work. So I'll now do a demonstrate in-game how recombinators work with respect to the UI, where you place them, item level shifts, etc. Furthermore, I'm going to show you the method that I used at the beginning of Sentinel League with a great deal of success, which allowed me to earn multiple mirrors on the first weekend of the league. This method will focus on mutation mod farming, so to speak. And it is a means to an end. In Sentinel League, I was employing this method to generate currency at a ludicrous rate of return. However, given the time limitations and the limited duration of time for this upcoming race that starts next week, and the relatively rare nature of the lakes required to further augment items, it's more likely that this go around I'm not going to be doing what I just mentioned, but rather I'm most likely going to stockpile these to progressively move towards my personal goal, crafting-wise, throughout the course of the week. So what are some chase crafts and what are some of my final thoughts here? As shown in the... Oh, sorry. This is the time for the in-game demonstration. My apologies. All right. let's see. Yeah. So you can see this is on standard, of course, but I've lined up some stuff here just so we can I can do this rather quickly. What we've got here is just an entire inventory of white amulets. Now you might be saying, Belton, why are you doing white amulets? And that's rather simple. So a mutated mod is just something that happens through the course of recombinating. It doesn't have anything to do with the mods that are currently on there. And so if you want to get just like, let's say, a magic item with just a power charge on it, you can actually just recombinate any item like this, any 2 rings. And the Sentinel mod does not have a item level requirement. You can get them at item level 1. And what we're looking for at the corner of my eye here is just simply to see the word. So right here, after we hit recombine, you see how it says steel ring. All we're looking for is sentinels. And if we see the word sentinel pop up, it means that we have hit either an endurance, frenzy, or a power charge. And so what we're going to show you here, this is the method I was doing at the... and as you can see, as I mentioned, one of the effects it can have is to add a mod as well. So in both of these items cases, it added a modifier. Oh, third case right there. One thing that we do want to avoid here, since the power, frenzy, and endurance charge are all prefixes, and since these are either magic or normal items, we do not want to recombinate it with an item that already has a prefix. So this one right here, which has of radiance, and this one which is of victory, it's fine to do it on that because again, if it did hit the sentinel, excuse me, if it did hit the sentinel, it would be the Sentinels of Radio. Oh, there we go. Boom. Sentinels gold ring and endurance charge. There you go. That's how easy it is. Right? So right there, how many recombinators does that take? We had 60 of them, 35. It only took 25. Now, this is one of the things I wasn't too sure if I was going to share, but, you know, I feel like we're going full disclosure here, so why not? Over the 20,000 recombinations that I did, and this seemed to be the case. Now, I can't say this with 100% certainty. However, I'm 99% sure it's the case that the Sentinel mod proc rate is the same across all different base types. So, you know, even though the Sentinel mod, you know, Sentinel's ring is a power charge, if you get the Sentinel mod on, let's say, a quiver, it would have the same level of rarity or proc rate if you were to do the same process on a different base. So based on the, you know, the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of these actually that I did, the proc rate was approximately 2.5% or 1 in 44. So if you wanted to get a charge specifically, since there are 3 charges, it would take roughly 132 recombinators. But in the process of doing so, you would be very likely to hit, you know, one of each one. Now, obviously, the more you do, the closer it's going to fall to that range. But yes, that just to give you a rough idea in case the item you're looking for does not exist, or if you do want to try this as well. Farming the actual recombinators themselves in League is not very difficult. Actually, it's shockingly easy, believe it or not, if you have a proper layout for it. I believe it was Grimro, but somebody, when they announced recombinators were being removed from the game, there was a creator. Again, I think it was Grimro, but don't quote me on that. There was someone who made a video on how to like sort of speed farm, recombinators using a certain Sentinel, and I believe it was a Glacier map. And you know, when they said that recombinators were not, you know, being added to the game, and that you know, they might think about adding them sometime in the future. But when they make those kinds of announcements, people tend to have a knee-jerk reaction. And so the price of recombinators went from like, you know, it was like 8 of them to a divine, to all of a sudden they were 3 divines each. And so there were there was the crowd that was stockpiling them for, you know, for standard long-term sake. Then there was the crowd, of course, that were just trying to flip them, you know, or find people who just logged in that didn't see the news yet, all that kind of stuff. All opportunists everywhere, of course. But yeah, that video that Grimro had. Oh, there we go, Sentinels. There we go, another endurance charge ring. But yeah, that video Grimro had as a result of that. I mean, it was a good video to begin with, but in particular when they announced that, and because of that massive price hike. I know pretty much everyone started doing that because of how lucrative it was. I kind of ventured away from it because I thought that the the massive price gain that it had would subdue over time because, again, I thought it was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I ended up being correct about that, by the way. Recombinators are less than a divine each on standard right now. I believe they're about 0.8 divs. So imagine that the the market on recombinators in the actual league was almost 4 times as expensive as it is, you know, what is it, a year later? It might even be more than that, maybe a year and a half later. Nonetheless, though, farming recombinators is not that difficult. Now, who's to say? I can't obviously say definitively whether or not the drop rate on things or the proc rate on things like Lakes of Kalandra or drop rate on recombinators will be the same as it was in the League of Origin, but unless given you know, information to the contrary, that's generally a pretty safe assumption to make. And so in that case, I wouldn't, you know, if you do want to go down this route of crafting these, I wouldn't be too concerned about being able to source the recombinators, as that's not particularly difficult. Now, I would highly, like, in my mind, I tell myself that they'd be foolish to not adjust the rate in which Lakes of Kalandra, you know, can appear. I myself, as I mentioned during Lake of Kalandra League, I had no trouble being able to just buy the tiles, right? But I actually think myself, I only found, I think, 2 lakes the entire league, and I played for like 2,000 hours. And I was actually mapping and stuff too, you know? And so I know a lot of people like were expressing such frustration with that many of them just quit. So you know, there is I think a healthy fear somewhat in my back of my mind that they haven't adjusted that at all. And over the course of a regular league, this would not be a problem whatsoever. But given the fact that there's only 1 week, and you know, even though it's a short amount of time, you also have to compound the fact that, you know, you personally have a small amount of time with the fact that there's going to be people that, you know, for myself, one of the things that is maybe, you know, an advantage that I have over other people when it comes to crafting or whatever is that I've got the longevity, right? Like, I play every league from the first day to the last. I never get bored of the game or tired of it. You know, I try at least not to make excuses about whatever. Like, if a league is not too fun, you know, I try to find some fun in it and just try to make things work, kind of thing, right? But a lot of people aren't like that, and so that tends to be an advantage that I build over time and over the course of a league. Now, in a 1-week race, oh, there's another. What the fudge? God damn. Sorry, the reason why we're still doing this, guys, that's our 3rd charge ring, is because I want to show you how the recombinators work after this, but we keep hitting endurance charges. We just need to hit a charge ring that's not an endurance. What are the odds of that? 1 in 3, 1 in 9, 1 in 27 to hit the same one 3 times. They are equally weighted, by the way. I know just by virtue of how often they're used, endurance charges are, you know, this is observable in synthesis rings and in precursors. Endurance charges are never valued as much by the market as power or frenzy charges are, but that's not reflected in rarity in any kind of way. They're definitely equally weighted. So yeah, I think basically the TLDR of what I was trying to say there, well, part of it's just that I don't want to be silent while I do this, to be honest. But the TLDR there is that if you are going to go down this road, or if you're going to try to make some cool stuff this league that, you know, is otherwise not available, and I honestly do recommend that. I think that, you know, for example, if you just want to recombinate things, you can do that anytime on standard. If you just want to, you know, synth roll, you can do that anytime on standard. You want to level, you can do that anytime in a league. It's like, if you have a 1 week opportunity like this and you are going to participate, you might as well do something that has some staying power to it. You know what I mean? If you're not actually racing the race, that is, of course, if you're one of these people that, you know, is a Giga Chad that's able to, actually ladder it and win and get one of those trophies or whatever the prizes are, good on you. And this obviously doesn't apply to you, but for your average Andes out there, it's I think it's important to not delude yourself. And the game in of itself, of course, is very fun. But for myself, I like to have some, like, I won't participate in races that are avoided unless there's a demigods to win, right? Because I feel like I need to have something coming out of an experience, right? And in these types of situations, I find that there's very few things that I look back on that I wouldn't say impact me as much, but that, like, I look at it and I'm like, damn, that was definitely worth it. As certain items that are, like, no longer obtainable, right? Having that super sick item that no one can get, like, just think about Low Thunder, right? Like, no one will ever be able to make another Low Thunder. Well, I shouldn't say ever, but that's just not something that's possible in the game anymore, right? Like, you look at Low Thunder, and then you look at the Mirror Bow, the very next league, and it's like 800 DPS, PDPS less on it, and it's just like, holy cow, you know what I mean? It gives a perspective to how rare something like that actually was. And the amount of time you put in is the exact same, so it's like, why not focus on something that can potentially have that cool factor? That's the way I approach it. Of course, everyone is free to interpret the game and enjoy the game as they choose. I would never presume to tell anyone otherwise, but that's just my thoughts on it. So in case anyone was curious as to why my focus lies there. And again, it's also important to note too that this even though this event is not being voided, it's not merging with the league, right? So it's going right to standard, and so because of that, it's basically like it's a 1 week delay to standard. Recombinators are already on standard as obviously just using them right now, and so the recombinators in of themselves don't really provide a cool enough, like a quote unquote cool enough factor for me. But the fact that Lake of Kalandra is back, which is not only was it like the least played league ever, so very few people actually have the items that were resultant of that, but also the fact that we have it being combined with Sentinel, where we have charges, like, oh daddy, one of the possibilities would be to make a +6 charge, max charge ring just on the prefixes. You couldn't do this with a synthesis, right? But if you get +1 to endurance, +1 to frenzy, +1 to power charge as your 3 prefixes, you take that into a tier 8 Lake Plus, it's absolutely possible to get that to go to +6. Now, as I mentioned, you can't synthesis cannot be taken into Lake of Kalandras, like into reflecting tiles. So you can't have the max charges on the synth, of course. Another thing to mention too, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned this or not, is the implicits on rings or amulets. Those are not impacted by lakes at all. So let's say you had an Onyx amulet, right, and you had like a times 2.0 multiplier for all of your explicits. That does not apply to the 16 to all res, or sorry, 16 to attributes. Sorry that this is taking so long, gentlemen. Got unlucky with the distribution there of... Oh, Sentinels, come on. Come on. Frenzy charge, there we go. Perfecto. Okay. There's a frenzy. We'll just get rid of these ones that are in our inventory. In case I do get a power charge here. Another thing, sorry, one other thing that's really important to mention. If you're going to be doing anything with recombinators and with rings, I would definitely look into all of the different bases that are available. Right, there are certain bases that are largely disregarded, and Lake of Kalandra, by the way, also has its own unique jewelry types. Something to consider, but things like the heist bases, so geodesic rings or cogwork rings. A geodesic ring can have 4 prefixes. A cogwork ring can have 4 suffixes. Now, I mentioned that you can block certain mods or force certain mods to have outcomes forced. You know, I won't fill in. I won't paint the. I won't paint the rest of the picture for you, but surely your minds can imagine that there's some pretty crazy outcomes that can result from that. All right. Well, we didn't get a power, but that's fine. So we got 3 endurance. And we certainly have the capacity to make more of these, but just because this is recording live here, I don't want to waste your guys' time. We're going to go off there. So, what we're going to do here. Perfect. Okay, so we regaled into a suffix on both, which is good. Now, this one has 2 suffixes and the 1 prefix, and this has the 1 prefix, 1 suffix. What we're then going to do is go to craft of exile here. This is what you would want to do in a process like this. As I mentioned, you can't have combinations of different things, and one of those would be influence mods. So, Crusader, let's see here. What we're going to do... Oh, do I have any... I do. Okay, good. What we're going to do here is take the Frenzy Ring, and we're going to do can't roll caster mods. Okay? And then when we use the Crusader... Oh my god, it's only item level 53. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, we'll have to do it on this. Sorry about that. I forgot to look at the sorry guys, I forgot to look at the item level. We can do it. We can just do the inverse though. Oh my god, this is 67. Oh Jesus. 38, 61. LOL. All right. Well, I'll show you another way then. In the meantime. So these are things, as I mentioned, there are ways to adjust item levels on these rings. If I wanted to, we could just, like here, for example, I'll do it on this one. So this is item level 38. So we can go for a ring. Let's see if we got any 87s, 86s. Okay, here's an item level 85, right? If we take an item level 85 blank ring and an item level 38, it should be 85 plus 38. That's 115, 123. So 111.5. I'm sorry, 123 would be 60. 61.5, 63. So it should be item level 63. There we go. You see that? So we moved the endurance charge. So we took the higher item level item, right? And we moved the endurance charge. It destroyed both bases and it raised the item level. So the fact that these have these lower item levels does not necessarily condemn those rings to a a life of being being screwed over basically. In fact, if we have one more here, I don't know why these item levels are so low. I did actually get someone, as you guys probably obviously notice, I'm on standard. I got someone on my guild to pick up rings for me while I was preparing the video, and it looks like he was buying these off of vendors. There we go. Now it's item level 75. And there we go. Perfect. All right, so there we use the there we just use the Canal Roll Caster mods, and then we use the Crusader's Orb, right? And that makes it so that obviously the prefix we put on is not a caster mod. And what we're going to do from there is now we're going to reforge a caster mod. Oh, we got super unlucky. That's a bit of a bummer. So with Crusader, there is a prefix that is a caster mod, and so if you reforge caster, the only mod that can go in there is the caster mod here. Spell damage. I was looking at the suffix there. It can either go spell damage or it can go life per enemy hit with skills. Unfortunately, in our case, it actually picked cast speed, the suffix, which is quite unlikely. And not only that, it also filled in the prefix. So that's a bit unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. What is somewhat irritating, though, is that it did put in rarity, which is not something we can bench mod here. So for the suffixes, we want to, because this one has 3 mods, and we have 2 of them on here. We're going to try and match the decks. There you go, guys. Take a look at that. Bada boom, bada bing. So now we've got +1 endurance, +1 frenzy, and we can clean those suffixes up if we'd like. No problemo. And if we wanted to go about making a 3 charge implicit ring, what we would do here is we can do the prefixes cannot be changed, and we can even just do it right now. Actually, we can put the a Crusader's Exalted on there, right, for that 3rd prefix, and then we could go do that same process again, where we go make another 2 charge ring, put that on, let's say, an amethyst, and we go with power charge and endurance charge, right, and then we would recombinate those together, and then what would happen there is we would have the 3 prefixes on each ring, so one would have power charge, endurance charge, and then we just have two on that one, and then on the other one we would have frenzy, endurance charge, and the influence mod. The best way to do this would actually be on a geodesic, because then you could put 2 influence prefixes, which would mean you have 6 total prefixes. If we recombinated those together and it chose the non-influence base, it would have to get rid of the influence mod, so that's 1 guaranteed. And since it had 2 of the same mod, which would be the endurance charges on each ring, it would have to get rid of one of those. So there you go. That's the 2 that it is the max that it can remove. And so your only remaining mods would be power charge, frenzy charge, and endurance charge. And that's really the process of being able to make a +2 ring or a +3 ring with respect to the explicits. As you can see, I think that it took me about 20 minutes to roll the rings there, so I do apologize for that additional length. However, to end up with a +2 ring in 20-25 minutes is certainly nothing to scoff at. So hopefully that was a helpful live demonstration. I know I didn't obviously go through the nuance, but again, if you do want to see more detailed, especially written out and very nicely formatted and not my semi-manic and kind of hard to follow brain, I do apologize. I know sometimes I can go on tangents. Iron is a fantastic PoE player, fantastic guy all around, and he's great at formatting information. So definitely big shout out to him, and check out those guides if that's what you're looking for. So let's get to the end of the video here. So we talked about the mutation farming, and we did the recombinations there, and we actually ended up being able to go ahead and make a +2 amulet live on stream, or live in this video, which is pretty cool. So as shown in the in-game demonstration, obtaining a single charge is not that difficult. We did it 4 times in about 20 minutes. However, it does require some patience, planning, and good fortune. And that's the good fortune is more in so if you're trying to target a specific charge. For example, if I were going for power charges there. Getting 2 charges on a ring is a rather impressive feat, but it's pretty lucrative. As you guys saw, I just did it there. Getting 3 charges on a ring is rather difficult, and one that will almost certainly come with some frustration and require a reasonable amount of tenacity and commitment, right? So, well, we got lucky there. Every time we were moving a charge around, it chose the right base, and we kept the charge. That's not like a guaranteed thing. It's not 100%. And there are going to be times where, you lose a 2-charge ring trying to make a 3-charge ring, or you lose a 3-charge ring trying to make a 4-charge ring. And kind of like when we've been crafting this league with Hinakora's locks. It's like once you get to your destination, it's no problem. But when you're spending like 100 divs every time to use a lock, it's just like, it's soul sucking. So it does take, again, a focused commitment and will to get there. So getting a T8 plus reflecting tile can be difficult though, and or pricey, as I've mentioned a few times now. However, if the above steps have fully come to fruition, so by that I mean getting your 3 charges or whatnot, doing so would allow for the possibility. Would be actually a 40% chance if you win with 5 mods. So max charge, max charge, max charge, and then 2 feeder mods, probably an aspect, and then let's say a minimum charge. It would be possible to get +2, +2, +2, or 6 total max charges. This is a feat that has yet to be accomplished in the entire game. They probably have done it on the Chinese servers, but not the real game. I was the first person to ever make a natural +3, a natural +4, and a natural +5. The reason I say natural is because Iron made a +3 breach ring, which technically becomes a +6 when you're in breach, but the ring itself never actually shows +6. So when I say natural, I mean like the actual rules on the ring itself. So this will certainly be my goal for the league. As the discharge daddy, the self-described discharge daddy, the captain of this ship, and I will go down with it. I need to get those charges, baby. Left, right, and center. If you were able to get... so these are a couple other cool ideas that just sort of came to me while I was writing this here, and this is the second last slide. If you were to get the 20% increased aura effect mutation, aka the Sentinel mod on the amulet, specifically if you were to put on a simplex amulet, which gives 25% increased effect of explicit modifiers, pardon me, that would turn it into a 25% aura effect amulet. And then you were to run it into T16 reflecting mist, which, as I mentioned earlier, has a 2.4 multiplier. You could actually get 60% increased aura effect of all of your auras from one mod on your amulet, which is pretty nuts. And this is unrelated to Sentinel, but another cool interaction that exists with Lake of Kalandra is the Vol skill duration modifier that's on amulets. And this is maybe a mod that some of you haven't seen before, and that's because it's very obscure and it only drops from one place that most people don't use. So I'm sure most of you guys have seen the Red Queen, the sextant or the compass. You roll it sometimes and it's like each map, when you put in like a sack frag or a mortal frag, it gives you, an increased chance for this red, like the Tomb of the Red Queen to show up or whatever. Basically, when you get one of those strong boxes, if you kill all of those mobs, there's like a 5% chance that they can drop an item that has a Vol mod on it. And since there's like 11 different pieces of gear, helmet, boots, whatever, it takes like 55 maps on average. With that mod on there, you'll get an amulet that has 25% 25% increased Vol skill duration. So that's how you get that. And there's some pretty cool stuff you can do with that, though, if you know where to farm it, and with Lake of Kalandra. So I'll get into that right now. So what you can do is the roll on that is 15 to 25, right? So you want to get that 25 on there, and you could then take that to a T16 Lake of Kalandra, and if you get it to hit but go negative, rather than being increased Vol skill duration, it goes to reduced Vol skill duration, 60%. And that's cool for 2 reasons. Number 1, reduced Vol skill duration. For any Vol skill that is duration tagged, it also reduces soul gain prevention time, right? So that also becomes 60% soul gain prevention. And now 60%, there's also the ring base, which I'm blanking on the name of. I think it might be Gloom Ring, but don't quote me on that. It can give you another 15% reduced skill effect duration. And then Window of Opportunity, which is the 3 passive points just to the south of Scion there, can give you another 25% reduced Vol skill durations. Just skill duration. So 15 plus 25 is 40, plus 60 is 100. So what does that mean? It means 0 soul gain prevention time, and you can get that from the amulet. Now, you can also combine this with like +4 to skills. And another thing you can combine it with is Vol Stormcall, because Vol Stormcall also scales off reduced duration because it strikes faster, and it's a Vol skill. So you get all those cool things. Now, you might be saying, Belton, why do you know this? Well, of course I know it because I have the only one that exists, and I actually am of the opinion that this is probably one of the coolest crafts I've ever made. But just to give you an idea of some of the neat outcomes that you can get from Lake of Kalandra and reflecting tiles. So you can see here that this has got 132 flat ES. The reduced Vol skill duration, perfectly rolled and perfectly divined. And we've got +2 to all skills and +2 to lightning. So we got +4, 132 ES, Vol skill reduction. And actually, here's a little fun fact for you. I don't think that they're going to bring this back for the 1 week race. But during Lake of Kalandra League, when you had minus minimum charges, the game counted it as the same as if you had plus maximum charges. So normally, like, you have 0 charges, let's say, right? And if you get 3 max charges, that means you have 3. The game was reading it, so if you had -2 minimum, instead of seeing it as 0 to 3, it would see it as -2 to 3. And so, like, the range in between those is 5, right? And so it would give you the same effect as if you had 5 charges. So not only did these not have a downside, but they actually, they could actually substantially improve your character. And with that, guys, I wanted to say thank you for watching. I know that this video has ended up being an hour long again. The bulk of what I wanted to get through was, in the first 30 minutes there. However, I thought it was important to show you guys how the recombinators work, and just, give you a little bit of a feel for it. And maybe, if nothing else, to give you guys some confidence to try it out for yourselves, for those of you who, again, are actively avoiding being racists and are participating in the race. So hopefully this video has helped introduce to those of you who are unable to participate in either or both of Sentinel League or Lake of Kalandra to the 2 leagues and their corresponding mechanics, in particular as they pertain to crafting. Both of them can produce items with very, very high ceilings and provide a challenging goal for those who seek it. If it's not your cup of tea, though, don't worry. In particular, Sentinel has beneficial and engaging applications at all levels of play. Personally, I'm looking forward to the challenge of being able to share the challenge of crafting an item like that, and looking forward to being able to share those experiences with you guys here. So if you have any questions about Sentinel League, Lake of Kalandra, reflecting mists or tiles, or recombinators, really anything I covered in this video, or anything in general, feel free to leave a comment below and let me know. Or if you got an idea for a video, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. I'll do my best to answer. If you guys want anything followed up with, or anything that you think merits its own video, again, same time, don't hesitate to say so or to ask, and I'm happy to take that. And yeah, last thing, if you enjoy this type of content along with crafting and currency guides, I really appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel and maybe leaving a like on the video below. I've been working pretty hard over the past couple months to put together regular, so often and relatively informative content. I feel like these kind of deeper dive videos are really where I best hit my stride. Like, I think that this is kind of this is home for me, like these little 5-minute videos, or like I'm gonna do a gamble. Yeah, they're fun sometimes. It's cool to do a little clickbait, but really going and diving into a topic, something that I know that I know almost better than anyone in the world, just because I've done it so many times, like where I'm in that comfort zone. I think that those are kind of my home run videos. Whether or not the viewership goes with that, it's really, I think, where my passion lies, and hopefully that comes through in the way I carry and communicate myself. But you guys probably know, though, I'm not so good with computers or video or editing or any of that stuff. I think I've got better, and I'm really, I'm giving it my all, trying my best here. But naturally, there's going to be some things I'll fuck up on. So don't hesitate again to leave me any suggestions or comments or feedback. I mean, try not to be overtly a dick with it, but if it's truth, then that's on me, right? But yeah, like the one thing that annoys, is it gonna sell though? That shit annoys me way more than like, hey man, your sound sucks. Things like that are somewhat constructive. I always appreciate. And just as an FYI, guys, thank you so much for the support. I thought this was pretty cool. I started streaming basically end of January. That was as a result of getting banned from Twitch temporarily. Actually, well, over Christmas, the TFT guys raided my channel and started spamming porn while I was having Christmas dinner. So I was perma-banned off Twitch. At that point, I didn't know that I was ever going to get it back. I ended up getting it back 3 months later. But that was actually the impetus to make the YouTube channel. So 10 months ago, and we're just about to hit, as you can see right there, right there, just about to hit 15,000 subscribers. So wow, 15,000 subs in 10 months. What an accomplishment. And I really appreciate that. It's super humbling and flattering. So yeah, for those of you who have been around for a while and who sticking through every video, even when I ramble on like this, I do appreciate it. And I know not all of you watch till the end. Actually, I know most of you don't watch the end, but for those of you that are still here, God bless. And if you're still sticking around and you haven't liked or sub, again, I would super appreciate that. But only if you like the content. Obviously, don't fill your head with anything that doesn't vibe with you. Anyways, guys, stay classy, exiles, and I'll see you next time.